I've had the Juice Bikes Recurrent S for 5 years now. Spoiler alert, yes, I would buy this bike again, but I wanted to share with you some of my thoughts and talk about some of the modifications that I've done to this bike. And overall, in the scheme of things, 5 years in the world of e-bikes is a long time. Juice Bikes still sells the RCS. There's a few different alterations that they've done over the years. The biggest one is probably the hub motor. Mine is 750 watts. The one that comes with the current recurrent S is 1,000 watts. The battery is still the same. I've got the 19.2 amp 52 volt battery in here, which has performed outstanding for 5 years now. But let me just sort of start front to back, top to bottom, and go over the most important components that people talk about in the e-bike community. Number one, tires. I'm on my second set of tires. When I bought the bike, I bought an extra set of tires because I knew eventually I would need them. I planned on putting a lot of miles on this thing. Now, I'm not really sure how many miles I've got on it because the odometer turned over and I wasn't paying attention. But again, I've had this for 5 years and I go just about everywhere with it, especially these last 3 years that we've lived down here in Florida. The tires themselves, I put the Tuffy extra tough liners in there, and then I also have slime inside of the tubes. And I've never had, knock on wood, I've never had a flat tire. Are they heavier than they probably should be? Yes, but the e-bike itself negates all of that, and so I don't worry about that. I'd rather have the reliability. So these tires are still the original Juice Bikes OEM tires for the RCS, and they've worked really well for me. The only thing I would say on the tires is that about every couple weeks I have to bring them back up to pressure, and I'll have lost maybe 3 to 4 pounds of air, and I usually keep these at about 29 pounds, so I'll top them off about every 2 weeks. Although this bike looks best without the fenders on it, I've chosen to keep the fenders on, but I may take those off soon because I don't ride it a lot in the rain, and the only water that I go through here is maybe from sprinkler systems that have sprayed water out into the road. Not really an issue. I may take those fenders off. In terms of fenders, you can see right here, the natural curve of this fender is a little off, and that's because the mounts from the fender to the bike, the points where they mount at, they're a little tight, and that's how it came from the factory, and it came with that. And there's a little crack right here in the fender, and guess what? I've had that crack for 5 years. It hasn't broken. That just sort of is what it is. The brakes, let's talk about the brakes, very important. This has the hydraulic disc brakes on it, and I've not had any issues. I've had to make a couple of emergency stops over the years, and it's always stopped me, and I'm 250 pounds, so I can build some momentum on this bike. The only thing I would say is, and I know I've had a lot of comments in my videos before and try to help people out, that is the pads that come with the bike stock from Juice Bikes. Some of them, when you use the brakes, it sounds like metal on metal is rubbing, so you think maybe something's off. Maybe I didn't put the tire on correctly, something like this. Turns out it's just the brake pads, and why, I do not know. But I've got a real popular video out there that shows how to replace those brake pads yourself. It's really easy. Just do it yourself. If you don't feel comfortable, just take it to any bike shop. They'll be able to do that for you. But I'll put a lot of links to the parts that I've used on this bike, including the brake pads, in the description below the video. I'm still on the wheels, and with that I'll say that I've probably changed 7 or 8 spokes out over the course of the 5 years. Now, the spokes on the front are a lighter gauge than the spokes on the back, and I was able to sort of track down what the spoke gauge was from the Juice Bikes website. So I got those, and then I just ordered it. The bike itself comes with a couple extra spokes, but I ordered a handful of the gauge for the front and the gauge for the back, and about 7 or 8 times I've changed out the spokes on this thing, and that too is relatively easy, not as easy as the disc brakes, but I've got a video on that, and I'll link that in the description as well. The fork has exceeded my expectations. It's not the highest end fork on a bike, but I've compressed it maybe 3/4 of the way. And I don't know if you can see this line right back here, and that's sort of the compression indicator right there. And so I've never really bottomed out this bike at all with the front fork. So it's been extremely adequate for me. The light itself is a nice flood pattern 1,000-watt light, and it still comes with this light if you buy an RCS today. This has been a really good light for me. I also keep a light that I've sort of modified that I can mount to my GoPro mount up here, and I use that as well, but this is a really good light for this bike. On the subject of brakes, I have changed out the motor cutoff switch that is part of the brake system here, and that's this lower cable. And what happened was it just stopped working. Now the brakes would still work, but you want that cutoff switch to work as well, and this is why. The recurrent S has a torque sensing system, and then the throttle is right here. If you're stopped talking to somebody, this has happened to us, and you accidentally lean on the throttle over here, the bike's going to lurch forward. Again, the torque system on the brake pedals, if you lean into the brake pedals and give them any pressure at all, the bike will want to lurch forward. That's why whenever I'm stopped and I don't want this thing moving, my hand is always on one of the brake levers. And so as long as it's on the brake lever, that electronic system that wires into the harness automatically cuts off the motor. It can't come on. So that's just a good safety mechanism. Whenever you're stopped, keep the brake handles depressed, one of them at least. A deciding factor when I was looking for an e-bike 5 years ago, two things really. One was the frame size, and this was very advantageous because the recurrent S comes in a small, medium, and a large frame size. I'm 6'3". I needed the large frame size. None of the other manufacturers at the time that I found were doing that, and so that was a huge benefit for me. And then I thought maybe I would suffer from range anxiety, so I wanted a really large battery. And the 19.2 amp, although there's other bikes out there now that have that, back then this was a really big battery on a bike, and I have found that I could go probably 50, 60 miles easy on this battery. Now, when I ride my bike, I'm pedaling 99.9% of the time, and 98% of the time it's on pedal assist level 1. Sometimes I'll go to a 3 or the speed mode on the indicator here, because we'll be going over a little bridge and I just want to sit down and pedal, so I let the motor do the work. But this has been really advantageous. No range anxiety at all. I've had this for 5 years. It's been kept in a climate controlled environment, my garage, always, so it's never frozen. And I don't know what the life of this battery is or how many cycle charges, but I probably charge my battery once every 2 weeks. And I don't worry about the charge level. I just charge it to full. I don't go to 80% or try to manage the battery through that. I just try to use the darn thing, and this battery has performed extremely well. The rack that comes with the bike, this is not it. So when I ordered my bike 5 years ago, they were out of racks. They shipped the bike anyway. I called them up and I said, hey, I didn't get a rack. And they said, that's because we don't have any in stock. We're waiting for those to come in. So my suggestion was, why don't you just give me a credit and I'll go out and buy my own rack. And that's what I did. They gave me a credit. I went out and bought this Toe Peak rack. I've got plenty of videos on that. This thing is awesome. It clips and you can take the accessories on and off really easily. And this Toe Peak rack is worth its weight in gold. But I would say this, even on the regular RCS, it's a good rack. I've seen them. And make sure you always have a rack on here, because this thing is very utilitarian because of the e-bike nature of it, in that extra weight is not going to bog you down. The back tire, just like the front tire, has the Tuffy XL liners in it and slime in the tubes. And I've been fortunate that this one wears just a little bit quicker than the front for me, but I'm 250 pounds, so I kind of expect that. This bike has been a beast overall. Now, I've done a number of modifications, and I'll go over those now with you. And this is just to make the bike more comfortable, and so that it fits me as a taller person even better. When you buy an RCS today, it will have the high-rise handlebars, but 5 years ago, it had just mountain bike handlebars on there. which forced me to really kind of lean over, and I didn't like that. I wanted to sit up more. I also took off the stock gooseneck and put on a 4-inch rise gooseneck as well, which lifted it up even further, makes the ride really comfortable for me. This is a Juice Bikes horn. That's an accessory that you can get from Juice Bikes. You can get it elsewhere as well, but this has been of value to me because I'll use that if I happen to be out in traffic or there's a vehicle that I need to alert. This thing is like a motorcycle horn. That's what that sounds like. Now when I'm on the multi-use paths that we have here on the island, I put a bell up here, and that bell is just for pedestrians. What I don't want to do is use this loud horn coming up on pedestrians, and it kind of startles people. So I got away from that, and now I just use the bell when appropriate. With that combination, you pretty much come up on anyone and pass them, and nobody's upset when you do that. I also mounted an extra accessory bar up here. I didn't go too big with it, but something else for a GoPro mount, which was something that I needed. And with these bars here, the diameter of the bar varies based on where you're at along this handlebar here. So this is stationary, and it works with any type of mount, any type of handlebar mount, and just works better with those. So I put that on myself. I think every bike should come with a mirror, but mine did not. So I put in this easy mirror here, goes into the end of the handlebar. Another thing I did was I put on my own grips. Now these grips here are stock now if you bought an RCS today, but back then they were the faux leather grips, and I didn't really like those. And these ergo grips are really nice, rubbery. Mine are a little worn, and but I think they're still have some life left in them. Really comfortable grips. I keep a strobe light on the front and on the back, so I use that in daytime and nighttime. And for security, I've got an ABIS lock mounted right here. Does really well. One thing that I'll give you a tip on, I take a Velcro strap and put that around not only the lock, but I've got a larger one around the battery, just in case I should hit something and that would become dislodged and bounce off. So I charge the battery on the bike. It's never an issue. The few times I've had to take the battery off, I just take the strap off, go with it. One thing about having a fat tire bike is the fat tires actually give you some suspension, which is really nice. And so it complements any type of seat setup or seat bar suspension system that you have. So I've got a specialized seat here. It is called the Cup. That's the model name of that seat. You can't buy it online. You've got to buy it from Specialized themselves. But this is an all-day seat. I've bought this as soon as I bought the bike. This seat's going on 5 years, and it's as comfortable, maybe even more so, than the day I purchased it. Then it's got a Cane Creek Thud Buster suspension system right here. And this has a rubber insert that gets changed out based on your weight. And so that has a little bit of a cantilever action to it. And that takes the bumps out of the sidewalks, the roads, the curbs, all that as well. Between my seat and the seat post suspension system and the high-rise gooseneck here, along with the high-rise bars, it's a really comfortable setup for somebody my height. Again, the Toe Peak rack, worth its weight in gold, and there's a lot of accessories that mount on here, and it snaps in and locks automatically, or you can just take it off within seconds. I told you I'd buy this bike again. Let me tell you why. Number one, the size. They still offer it in small, medium, large. The battery that they have now is even better than this battery here, but this is still a fantastic battery. If it had the same battery system, I would buy that today. So Juice Bikes really nailed their batteries. Everything else is about the same that you could find in other bikes. The reliability has been really good for me. Like I said, the only thing I've had to do is change out some wiring up here in the motor shutoff cable for the handbrakes, and then also some spokes. Other than that, I keep it wiped down, I keep it clean, I keep it in good condition. There is nothing that I don't do on this bike that I wish I could do. So I take it everywhere I want to. I use it as a tool. I don't baby it, even though it looks like it's in excellent condition, and it is. But I don't baby it. I use it for what it is, and this bike has held up really well. I've thought about upgrading to the newest model of the RCS, but really the only advantage would be the increased 250 watts on the hub motor. So it'd be 1,000 instead of the 750 that I have. And I haven't done that because it's usually flat here where we live. I'm in pedal assist 2 most of the time. The life of this thing is probably under 15 miles an hour. I don't need the speed and I don't really need the extra power, so I'm going to ride this sucker out a little bit longer, and something is going to have to come along in the e-bike space to really impress me before I get rid of this thing. That's how reliable this is. I love my RCS. It's served me extremely well. I hope your e-bike does the same for you, and I also hope you found this video interesting and informative. I'll see you next time.